This is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee on the 25th of April, and it's about 8:30 Holy Land time here in Israel, and it ain't so holy here, believe me. 71 degrees, 88 degrees high today. Partially cloudy though the whole day, which is unusual. At the very end of the day, the clouds go away. Odd. Tomorrow, the same, except all sunny and 87 high. Then it's threatening us, the weather is threatening us with rain on Monday, but only a 35% chance. So it looks like something might happen Wednesday, some drizzles or something like that. But we're out of the cold weather. It looks like that's the end of the cool weather. We're going into good spring weather. Okay, what we're going to cover today is, as far as my research, which I think sorry, that was a stupid pop-up from these idiots. As far as I could tell, and I researched it rather well, there is no negotiations today. And I'll explain why and why people were thinking there is and stuff like that. The Iranian American negotiations in Pakistan. The stream of cargo planes is nonstop for weeks now. It's going to Europe and then the Middle East, and they're not bringing in, Lay's potato chips and, hot dogs. It's weapons. All different kinds of weapons. And the third aircraft carrier is in position now. Excuse me. You got the Bush, the Ford, and the Abraham Lincoln with their escort vessels, which I think I had a country. Okay, I think they each have 2 escorts, so that's 6 plus 3, that's 9. But I heard somebody today say, or yesterday, there was 12 total. So that means they had 3 escorts each. But I'm not sure the person knew exactly what they were talking about. So I don't know how many escorts there are, but it's at least 9. I mean, it's at least a total of 9 ships. I'm not hearing about Trump bringing, 10 or 15 other destroyers or anything like that over here. It's not coming in. I'm not picking that up. I don't think he has a need for that. He's predominantly interested in aerial attack. So each of these aircraft carriers can hold about 90 planes. Okay? But maybe 80 of them are real fighter planes and the others are doing other things. I don't know the exact count. It could vary. We could say there's 200 combat planes total. We could push it to 250. We could settle at about 225. And there's probably another 150 planes floating around the Middle East here, that counting refueling tankers and Growlers and all sorts of other planes, A-10s. You could say there's maybe, I would give it at least 300 total, maybe 350 or 400. Maybe 500, I don't know. At Ben Gurion Airport, we got F-22 Raptors now. Oh, we're not flying them, they're parked. And we got all sorts of refueling tankers sitting there. So why all of a sudden refueling tankers, a good amount, show up at Ben Gurion Airport? They're not refueling the El Al planes midair, believe me. Something's up, right? Okay. Now that we got the 3 aircraft carriers together, they're around Oman. I don't know if you call it the Gulf of Oman or the Sea of Oman. I think it's interchangeable. By the Indian Ocean. I think Trump's ready to go. All right, we're going to get into this and what we think it's going to look like and when we think we're going to see this. Hold on, I got to get rid of whatever this. I get rid of this stupid thing and I don't even know where it's coming from now. I don't know what it is. Hold on, I'll just reboot the thing. I have no idea what the heck got turned on, and I don't want to sit there and start hitting different buttons, and then I could. I don't want to even mention. I just don't want to sit here and do that. I got the other iPad. I wiped all the data and I put it next to the iPad, and everything worked, and I got everything transferred. And now I just got to put a million passwords in there and figure out what the passwords are, look them up, and so it's made progress. There's nothing wrong with it. But to be honest with you guys, I'm so focused on the war. When I finish after the broadcast and I eat my breakfast, I'm kind of wiped out. It's hard for me to summon up the strength to, I get up like 5:30, and I go to work for a few hours, and I do the broadcast for a few hours, and then that's about it for me. It's a lot of work. It's not that you get tired in your arms and your legs, you get tired up here in your head. All right. Let's go into the live stream without having any problems. So where's my sound? Where's my sound? My sound is there. Got plenty of sound, just got the delay. Thanks to the moderators. They really make it easier for me. Okay. Now what are we dealing with here? Okay, I'm going to get a post up here very quickly. Okay, I'm good on typos, and let me pin this up. Okay, that press didn't get me the right thing. Let's try this. And there we go. Okay, I got that done, and people are coming in, and let me shut the volume on this. Okay. Being a Bible believing site, we'll do some praise and then we'll get going. I have no control if anybody joins in or doesn't join in on the praise. Okay. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so let's clear up what happened with Iran. Okay, there's a military guy, one of the heads or the head of the IRGC in Iran. Now, let me tell you something. When the negotiations were going on in the past, like in June last year, we didn't have IRGC generals showing up at the negotiations. As far as I remember, that wasn't the case. Now the generals are. The generals seem to be correct when people say they're running the show in Iran. I believe it's true. So this general had a scheduled trip to go down before Trump started saying we're going to have negotiations with them on Saturday today. So he had a scheduled trip to stop in Pakistan. Now, mind you, Pakistan has a mutual defense treaty with Saudi Arabia, and Iran is attacking Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan has 13,000 troops plus aircraft in Saudi Arabia, unless that number increased. They had at least that. So Pakistan doesn't want to have a fight with Iran, okay? And that's what I think is going on. They're trying to plead with Iran to wake up and smell the roses, which is never going to happen. So he was going to Iran, and then from Iran, the guy is flying up to Oman. So instead of going to Oman, which is close to Iran, he's going down in Pakistan, then flying back up. And then he's probably more in line with where Moscow is, and he's flying over to see Moscow. So I doubt they're going over there to talk about the price of pistachio nuts. I would think they're going over there to talk about the price of of war. I don't know if they went to see Putin on their own or Putin summoned them. I don't know. Putin used to summon Netanyahu all the time when we'd be fighting Gaza, and Netanyahu would be flying over there, Yes, Mr. Putin. But now, and Putin doesn't call him. It's obvious Netanyahu's Trump's boy now. So there's no calls from Russia. Or there are, and Netanyahu says, I'm too busy, go fly a kite. Putin probably knows anything and everything he tells Netanyahu is going to go to Trump. And if Trump says he agrees with it, it'll be okay. If not, it's not okay. Trump may have also told Netanyahu not to have any dealings with Putin like that anymore. Likely. So, Trump goes out and says, okay, we're having negotiations in Islamabad, Pakistan on Saturday. The Iranian people, the negotiating team, or whatever, are flying down there. Axios was one of the big ones to carry the story. So we know Axios isn't very accurate now, for sure. So what happened is the Iranians publish a rebuttal, one of many, and say, we're not talking to the Americans, we're not having any direct negotiations with America, we're not doing any of that, leave us alone. This was a pre-planned trip with 3 stops, and he can't stay over because he's on a run. He has to go to 3 countries. Now, why is he talking to Oman? Well, they have attacked Oman, but not as heavily as like Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, or Bahrain. My best guess is they're telling Oman something like, we want to put forces in Oman to attack the Americans in the Persian Gulf or something like that. Or attack ships in the Persian Gulf or something. Yeah. Oman is pretty close to where the 3 aircraft carriers are. Not really next door, but I mean, it's a heck of a lot closer than Iran is. If Iran's talking to Oman, they want something out of Oman. And they're not going to give anything to Oman unless Oman gives something to them in return. So the bottom line here in my book is, I think Iran is asking, but they ain't going to get what they want. Because Oman knows what's going to happen. And what's going to happen is America and Israel are going to bomb Oman in the sense of attacking any of the Iranian installations. And I just don't think Oman wants to be on that side of it. I don't think they'll do anything. If they could, they would play neutral, but Iran doesn't allow that. So I don't think they do, but Oman's not really so neutral. Trying to walk on both sides of the street is what he's trying to do. It's not real. They don't have a military to speak of, so it's not all that relevant. Um, so according to the Speaker of the White House, Carolyn something, she said that Witkoff and Kushner are going to Pakistan, but I didn't ever read that they arrived or anything like that. For a while, J.D. Vance wasn't going. Then he said he was going. And then he said he's not going, but he's on standby if he has to go. So Vance backed out because it doesn't look like they're going to show up. Why would Trump send Kushner and Witkoff? Well, they got nothing better to do, and it drives the price of oil down. If he doesn't send them, then it appears there's no negotiations. If he says they're going and other news media and Iran say, no, it's a waste of time, there's no negotiations, and Trump says there are and sends Witkoff and Kushner, or lies and says he's sending Witkoff and Kushner, how do you know they're really on the plane? And it looks real. And then the price of the fuel goes down, which is $94 on the WTI and 105 on the Brent, the European, this morning. So it's not that low, and it's low-ish, but it's not that that good. The 105 is about right for where we were seeing Brent oil, and probably 101, 104 or something like that. It'd be about right for the WTI. So it was driven down. It won't stay. What Trump's doing is just like that old tale, putting his fingers in the dike. The dike is leaking, and he's sticking fingers in, and then eventually he's contorting and he runs out of fingers. So this is a game he's played and lost multiple times. And I think every time he plays this game, fewer and fewer people believe it. So it has less and less impact on the oil. And I would say perhaps the next time he does it, or maybe the time after it, it'll have no impact on the oil. People will just be writing Trump off as a fibber. Okay. That's that. All right, so let's continue. It really doesn't look like there's going to be any negotiations. What Trump was trying to play was that the Iranians are going to come there and give him their proposal for a negotiation. Is that going to happen? Most unlikely. The army in Iran doesn't see themselves as losing like Trump sees them, okay? They're not using the same criteria as Trump, and this is very hard for the Americans to understand. They're still there. They got missiles. They got capability. They could launch. They're controlling their country. They're winning. The fact that there was probably $1 trillion of damage done to Iran, it doesn't mean anything to them. It's collateral damage that happens in war, and forget about it. It happens. Don't pay attention to it. We're still here. Now, what they have said is they said they've managed to open up the entrances to the tunnels. So what appears to be going on is Israel has these bombs. They're bombs. You could place them by hand as well, where you could drop them out of a plane. When they hit an area, they not exactly, they make something that looks like a styrofoam, but it's kind of got like a big sponge, okay? But it's hard as nails, okay? So the explosive in the bomb has these chemicals in there that expand and they push into the walls of this entrance, okay? And it's quite a few feet thick, and it's from the floor to the ceiling and the sides. It spreads itself out and presses into all the surrounding areas of the entrance, top, bottom, sides. And it's as hard as a concrete. Okay, and I guess it's probably 3, 4 feet thick, something like that. It's pretty thick and it's pretty strong. So the Iranians said that we just managed to get some of these tunnel entrances open. So we've been using those bombs. We use them in Gaza on the tunnels, and they seal the tunnels up. They don't get rid of the tunnels, they seal them up. So if they can't open that in Gaza, which could be the case because they don't have all the heavy equipment, like what Iran would have, what they could do in Gaza is just go 30 yards away or wherever and dig a new entrance. If they can, I don't know if they can. They may not have the equipment. I have no idea. Gaza and Iran are two completely different things altogether. They're both run by psychotics, but they're different capabilities and very different. Okay. So the Iranians are thinking they're winning. In their contorted mind, they think they are. The Americans and the Israelis can't get rid of us. They also managed to get some other, doors and different things for the missile cities to function again. So Trump, with his lunatic ceasefire, managed to enable the Iranians to rebuild and repair their missile cities and launch more missiles when the fighting starts up again, which it will. See, that's the problem with these ceasefires. It's as stupid as the targeted assassination. You got to kill the soldiers. You don't go around just doing targeted assassinations. It doesn't work. You don't just go around blowing up real estate. It doesn't work. But it did work in Gaza. Oh, yeah, but look how long it took. And as a result of not blowing up the soldiers, there's a good 20,000 or more of them still in Gaza, not giving up their weapons. Which is crazy, right? And it looks like by every stretch of the imagination, according to Trump and Netanyahu and what they're going to do, these people are going to still stay in Gaza somehow, some way, some shape or form, and probably still have their weapons. Now, Netanyahu did sponsor some militias that are engaging in active street warfare with Hamas, shooting at them and, killing them, and they're getting killed. So that's a good thing, and maybe that'll be the end of it. I don't know. But keeping them alive and in Gaza is stupid for Israel because they will just regroup and try to kill us again. It's idiotic to do that. But that's our Netanyahu. Okay. Iraq is insinuating that they may get into the fight with Iran. I suspect they will, and I suspect they'll get wiped out with Iran. Back to the prophecy of Elam, which can include Iraq and Iran in Jeremiah 49, starting in verse 34. There's been a large conference, it was over Thursday in Europe, about what to do with Iran, and it had a lot of military in it. And I don't know how serious it ever got or didn't get. I don't know yet. I don't know what's going to happen with that. A lot of European countries, and I have a feeling nothing. Or they'll try to negotiate with Iran, but you can't. Iran has nothing to bargain with. Trump's controlling the Persian Gulf, and he doesn't want any ships coming and going from Iran. So he's perfectly willing to let ships go in and out that are not conducting business with Iran. But the problem is the Iranians laid naval mines in the waters in the Persian Gulf that are away from Iran that the ships would want to use. So by putting mines there, it forces the ships to be closer to Iran. And now Iran is interdicting them with go-fast boats, confiscating them, attacking them so they turn back. But when Iran escalates, they could shoot artillery and missiles at these ships. So the situation isn't anything but good. So if can the Europeans go to Iran and say, yeah, we'll give you $2 million a ship toll, and we'll relieve our sanctions against you and stuff like that. Then Iran will turn around and say, okay, you can pass, but then Trump won't let him in. So Iran doesn't have the control. So I don't see how they could make a peaceful deal with Iran. What they're afraid of, the Europeans, is running out of oil soon. Maybe summertime, end of summer, and being up the creek without a paddle, so they're trying to fix it now. And Trump's not being ultra cooperative with them. They might have woken up and realized that the way to get Trump to work with them is to send warships. And that might be what they do, maybe also aircraft. But, what are they going to send? 10, 15 planes per country? That's it. Some countries will send 4 or 5, But it adds up. If you got 12, 15 countries doing it, you got a big collection of ships and planes. France and the UK are trying to run the show and go against Trump in every way possible. But I think they're running out of options. And I think Iran is using the ceasefire to repair their missile cities, in addition to manufacturing as many missiles as they can with a long range to hit Europe. They did tell us the war will come back, it'll be global, and they are serious and they mean it. And I think the only thing will stop them is if they can't achieve it physically. In other words, they can't get the missiles to go that far. And I doubt that to be the case. I think they will get them to go that far. They can go far enough now to hit parts of Europe. Let's get a few prayer requests done because we got a few. The first one I can pray and you can agree. The first one is for, RS. So, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray for this person, RS, Romeo Sierra, RS. I pray for her to have relief from pain and be more comfortable and relaxed. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay, so you guys can agree with that if you're true believers, and will help this person. It's a poor elderly person, okay? Not somebody known to me personally. Okay, it was a request. All right. This is a prayer request for one of our own that is known to me. Okay, we'll use the initial J like Jack. Okay, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I come to you, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, with a prayer for this person, Jay, who you know who it is. I pray for an improved living situation for this person and not to have to deal with the bureaucracy of the government that's so obnoxious and negative. And I pray most importantly for Jay to get a good job quickly, a good job, and be in peace and calm and rest. I pray this to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree that, Jay gets a good job and doesn't have a lot of problems anymore with the government bureaucracy systems and has a good living situation. Okay. So, true believers, you can agree with that. Next, we have a prayer request for IF. India Foxtrot. IF. India Foxtrot. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah. Well, you guys can pray for this. I already did. So, IF lost the telephone, the cell phone, in the house is the thought, maybe someplace else. So, the prayer request is that IF, India Foxtrot, can find the cell phone quickly and easily, or if it's been lost out of the house, it gets returned. We'll pray for that, okay? B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. You can pray for that, and I pray for that again, that it happens. Okay. People lose cell phones in their house more often than you think, and they often are turned off or the battery is dead. That makes it rather difficult to find it. If it's not turned off and not dead, you can usually ask somebody to call it, or, but other than that, you got problems. Okay. So I don't think there's any peace negotiations, and now Trump, I think, is perhaps waiting for the Iwo Jima amphibious group with the little aircraft carrier to show up, which might be more than a week. or he'll move ahead without it. I don't know. I don't know. My hunch is he'll move ahead without it. What he's doing is he's regrouping, and he has to regroup because they're running low on weapons. They had to replenish. And I'm not so sure that was such a great idea because Iran is rebuilding. So, to an extent, Israel and Iran have to go back to square one about attacking the missile cities. Now, the plan may change, and I have a feeling likely change to more of a boots on the ground attacking these places, the missile cities. Now we're seeing the Iranian Basij, they're militia forces, volunteers. They were seen in recent nights or days, you could say, carrying Russian Igla, or is it no? It's LGA, Ligla. I guess it's, how do you pronounce these crazy words? Ligla. Shoulder-fired missiles. Okay, this is an anti-aircraft shoulder-fired missile. Okay, it's it's like referred to. It's a shoulder-fired missile, is what it is for aircraft, and its range is about 5 kilometers or 3 miles. So it's not going to get a plane, at 25, 30,000 feet. I don't know if it's wire guided or something or laser locked. I don't know. They could, some of them that America has, you put it on the plane in the air and you get a laser lock on it. And then I think you have to keep the aircraft aimed at the plane until the missile hits it, which could be 10 seconds or something. The Americans once go further than that. I think they go about 5 miles. They're not highly effective on tanks because this is not a heavy charged armor piercing shell weapon. It's aircraft are flimsy. You don't have to, use armor piercing to get through what they're built of. So they are dangerous. They are dangerous. Okay. Now, can you hit an F-15 with something like that? Yeah, if the F-15's on a low bomb run, you could. But as soon as they turn that on and try to get a lock, the F-16, the F-15, or the F-16, or their protective systems are going to start sounding all kinds of alerts, and then the guy could just hit the afterburner and get altitude and get out of there, and. But they're definitely another problem. Okay. The real vulnerability on aircraft is helicopters. Helicopters generally don't get a lot of altitude, and helicopters usually can go maybe 150, 180 miles an hour, something like that. They're not very fast. So they got to be very careful with helicopters with these guys running around those missiles, because that is a problem. So it's just an added problem. It doesn't change things, it's just more problems. Okay. The Assembly of Muslim Scholars in Lebanon sounds like an oxymoron to me. We declare our absolute rejection of negotiations with Israel. This is Lebanon now. And consider the Lebanese government as lacking legitimacy for this. See, read between the lines. They're getting ready to overthrow the Lebanon government and declare, basically do what Iran did, what the IRGC did to Iran, they want to do to Lebanon. So all the non-Muslim Lebanese are going to have to leave, and that would also mean the Sunni Muslims are probably going to have to leave too, because they'll get picked on by the Shiites. Okay. So you're talking about millions of people leaving. I don't believe the Lebanese government can defend themselves adequately against Hezbollah. I think they would fall in 96 hours or less. I also believe Trump would try to help the Lebanese government, and then it would be the end of Hezbollah. That would be very consistent with the time of recompenses. Israel would be in there too. Don't get me wrong, but with America and Israel in there, then Israel knows now it can do whatever it wants, and that would just mean Hezbollah's time is over. That's that. Do I really think this will happen? I think it's got a very high probability, very high. I think a lot of the Lebanese government will just run away and hide, stuff like that. I don't think they'll fight. That, well, Hezbollah doesn't have any tanks to speak of. They have a few, by the way. They don't have any armored personnel carriers except maybe a handful. They don't have any aircraft that I'm aware of, like helicopters and planes. They don't have any real naval vessels. No destroyers, no frigates, no missile carriers, no cruisers, no light cruisers, midweight, heavyweight cruisers, no nothing, right? So it's, what are they about? They're about using pickup trucks called technical, where they mount machine guns in the back. They got motorcycles. They're basically fighting with AK-47s anti-tank weapons, which are shoulder fired and dangerous. And they got these anti-aircraft shoulder fired weapons. And they got Katyusha rockets and they got missiles. So they just missile attack the Lebanese government buildings. That's all they got to do. Or it's so much easier. All they really got to do is, if there's a government building, 50 of them go in and take over the government building. Kill the government officials. Oh, that's pretty likely to occur. I don't know if the Lebanese army would fight at all. They may just stand down and surrender. They may not even fire a shot. And a lot of the Shiite soldiers, which is about 60% of their army, would probably be invited to join the new Hezbollah regime. And some would and some wouldn't, I guess. And it looks like that's on the table. I don't think Trump cares that much about that. He has been disappointed in the Lebanese government, and a new government would be better from Trump's viewpoint. But the real new government of Lebanon is going to be Israel. Just give it a little time, not a lot, a tiny bit. Okay, the assembly. Okay, so that's what they're saying. We declare our support for Iran. This is the Muslim scholars in Lebanon, which means the Muslims in Lebanon are basically gonna follow these guys. We declare our support for Iran and consider it entitled to the decision of the ceasefire that Israel was forced to accept. Okay, so you got a major problem brewing over there. A problem that the Lebanese government is really unable to deal with. I mean, really and truly unable to do anything about it. They just can't. They're not going to do anything. They'll just lay down for it. And then there's going to be a lot of problems for the women, and the women walk around in Lebanon without their hijabs and stuff like that. They're going to be getting raped. All the Muslim men have to do, they're taught that they're oversexed. Okay, let's just say they were overcome, by their urges for sex, and they just had to rape this woman, and she wasn't a Muslim. So it was good. It was humbling to her. Shows her what'll happen to her repeatedly if she doesn't become a Muslim and wear the hijab. They usually don't go and rape a woman with a hijab because the woman only goes out of the house accompanied with a relative, like a cousin, a brother, somebody that stays with them. China and India are urging their citizens to leave Iran immediately. This was yesterday. I'm only getting started here. In addition to them asking their citizens to leave Iran immediately, like yesterday, we also see the UK, Russia, Turkey, and Pakistan also telling their citizens to get the heck out of Iran immediately. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 countries. Somebody wrote there were 15 countries that did this. It might be true. I couldn't find that many though. So what do they know? Their intel is picking something up. Some sort of military movement from Trump and America and Israel. Something. Okay. I can only speculate what it is, but something, and they said, get out of there. They want him to get out of there now where they can take a cab and go to the airport and get on a plane and go to another country and then hop, skip, and jump back home or whatever. Now, our friends in Somalia who used to be hijacking boats and ships constantly years ago, piracy is a game they love to play. They hijacked an oil tanker with 17 crew that was sailing near the Somalia or Somali coast, whatever you want to call it. The Somali land is a breakaway state from Somalia that Israel recognizes, and they hate that. So now they're just starting to go after this ship. The Honor 25, HONOUR with the number 25, was overrun late on Wednesday by 6 gunmen when it was approximately 30 nautical miles offshore, the official said. Now, I don't know how they got up on the boat. These boats are usually, 30, to, at least 20, 30 feet over the waterline, sometimes 40 or 50 feet. I don't know how they got up there. Usually they need some kind of a ladder, and they bring their own ladder on the boat. And the ladder has hooks on it that they hook it onto the deck, and then they climb up on the ladder. And the thought is if there's an accident and they fall, they're most likely going to fall in the water and not get killed. Depending how high you're going. If you're going 40, 50 feet, you can get killed, okay? If you're at 25 feet, it's like going off a diving board or something. Not much anything can happen. Okay. Now, the boats swerve a lot when they're being attacked. And the Somali ships, the pirate vessel is much, much smaller, and it just veers away. The other thing they do is they have, I don't know what you want to call them, water cannons that are on the sides of the ship. Now, let's understand that when you're out in the ocean with one of these big commercial vessels, there's absolutely no shortage of water because you're pumping the ocean water up and ejecting it out with force. So if you were standing up and these hoses hit you, it could knock you over and maybe even stop you from standing up. So they have a lot of these hoses lined up all around the boat, everywhere on the boat. Okay. when they're coming under attack, they just throw a switch and these hoses just start pumping and shooting water out. Now, they can change the direction the hoses are firing at somewhat, but there's a lot of hoses. It's not 3 or 4. You can be talking 25, 30 hoses on the side of a boat or more. It's a lot. And the hoses are doing what to the boat? If the boat gets adjacent to the big boat they're trying to board to use the ladder, right? It's getting pelted by several hoses at the same time, and it's filling up their boat with water. They don't have pumps in these boats that are adequate to get the water out quicker than the hoses can put it in. They don't have a pump. That wouldn't work. So they have to get next to the boat, and the guys jump and grab the ladder, and then they got to pull away from the where the boat is positioned under the hoses. They veer away. So the idea is to get in there, and they're going to get drenched, but get out of there before they get flooded. Because you could flood it enough and it's going to not run. It'll start going down in the water line. The engine will be covered with water and it won't be able to get air and run. And you got all kinds of wonderful issues. So, they do that. Now, the guys on the boat, generally, when this happens, they run into the bridge or the offices at the top of the boat where they go up in a tower. And usually there's a sturdy metal door and they have a handle they could spin and lock it. And I mean, the door could be a 1/2 inch steel, okay, or an inch. It's very sturdy. And the people that boarded the boat can't get into the bridge at times. It depends how the boat was built. If it was built for peaceful times, yeah, but if it was built for modern times with security features, there might be 15, 20 feet of solid steel at the bottom of this bridge. So if they get on the deck by the bridge, they can't get in, they can't do anything. Then the boat would have locked doors elsewhere to stop them from getting into the engine room or anywhere where they can cause a lot of damage. So they could run around on the ship and they can't cause a whole lot of damage. Okay. A lot of ships carry security guys, which is usually 2. Maybe it'd be 4, but normally 2. And they carry rifles. A lot of times it's just an AR-15, and they probably carry 500 rounds or 1,000 rounds, and they will lay down on the deck, and a lot of times they'll have a low-powered scope, maybe like 4 power, 3 power. And they're not looking to take shots more than 300-400 meters. That's about the most they'll go. And they can go full auto. So they'll lay a volley in front of the boat, and that gets the guy in the boat scared. And if he keeps pushing, what they try to do is put a burst of, 5, 6, 7, 8 rounds at the engine and knock his engine out. If you knock his engine out, the chances of it catching fire is typically like, I don't know, 50%. It's pretty substantial. And a fire in the engine and the motor is likely going to cause a fire or an explosion in the boat. So then it's man overboard time. They grab a life preserver and they go overboard, They're not happy campers, okay? The other thing the guys can do is fire into the boat, which is going to kill some of them. So it's more legally comfortable for them to just shoot the motor up or the boat up. Now, they normally don't board the boat when there's two guys with assault rifles firing at them. Now, some people will board it and they'll have a heavier round bullet. They'll have like a 308. That's more destructive to people and the boat. And it could go full auto. Some of these guys have a 50 caliber on the boat, automatic and also semi-automatic, and that can easily attack them at a mile out with accuracy. So they deter them that way. So whenever they encounter a ship that has paid protection with guns, they don't like it because some of them are going to get killed. Now let's get into it a little deeper. When you have that ladder, they go up. If the crew got guts, okay, they could just come out and wait for them to come up the ladder and just take a baseball bat or a pipe and swing it at them and knock them off into the water. But they're carrying guns. Now, how do you climb up a ladder in the ocean with the waves and everything else holding an AK-47? You don't. You can't do that. You can't go up easily holding the rifle. It's pretty difficult. They could, but I mean, the fear the guys have is when they get to the top, of the ladder and then they climb over, they could shoot the people waiting for them. So there's other things that could be done, but we don't know everything they do. They could take a sawzall and saw the hooks the ladder is holding onto on the boat, with a round blade that's diamond. It wouldn't take but seconds, and they saw it, and then the guys fall off in the water. But when they're dealing with gunmen, all the gunmen are going to do is, if they're coming up, they're going to shoot them while they're on the ladder. They're not going to wait for them to get to the top. All he's got to do is lean over with the rifle pointed down. He can actually hold the rifle out, working the trigger with his thumb, and point it down like this and go, nice 20, 30 rounds. And the chances of the guy falling off the ladder is probably 95%. If he doesn't get hit with bullets, he's probably going to drop off the ladder before he does. So it's almost 100%. So they don't like to mess when the guys got security with a few guns on there. They don't want to mess around with this because it's very dangerous for them. They don't want to get killed. It's a dangerous job because they could get killed just coming over there, and the guys spray a few rounds in their boat, and their boat is damaged. It's taking water, and the big ship's just going to try to get as far away from them as they can, and they're going to report what happened, and then maybe nothing will happen, or somebody's military is going to send a helicopter or a boat out there and try to get these jerks into custody and, stuff like that. Or the military boat might come out there and they get into a gunfight and the military kills them. So it's a dangerous game. Other things, people put devices when they get on the top of the ladder to come over. They can have devices like nets things that make it another obstacle for them to try to get on the deck of the boat. So there's these big nets that might be 10, 12 feet, and they got to try to climb over those to get in, and now they're very heavily exposed. You know, it's, somebody could just come with a knife and stab them when they're on the net, They could, then they get up on the deck and the guys are locked in and they can't always get to them, So now they're on the boat, and what do? If they're going to destroy the motor of the boat, they're only going to do it if they have the escape boat there and they can get away. Because what's the point of destroying the motor of the boat and they're on the boat? Because the guys got radios and cell phones and sat phones and all sorts of stuff they can't destroy. And they're going to be giving a report to the military, who's going to come out there, and then they're going to get caught because they're on the boat. Same thing is, why put the boat on fire unless they have an escape boat, or they're going to burn up. So it's a good question. What happens most of the time when they're on the boat? They have other devices they use. They have sound devices that they aim these things. It's like a sound cannon, and they aim it at the guys, and it gives them very tremendous sound in their head, and like, they get like crazy. Tear gas, I never heard of. So there are numerous attempts by pirates to board the boat, and they can't because there's protective measures. And these hoses they have work rather well. So the real answer is to be armed, and that's what they should do, but they're not doing that. What they should do is they should give these guys a 3-inch gun or a 5-inch gun, or two of them, and they could hit these pirates with an artillery shell, and that's the end of them. That's it. I mean, these are old fishing boats that could be 30, 35 feet long, but the sides of the boat are about that much. And they come out with a big boat, okay, not a little 30-foot fishing boat. They'll come out with like 100, 120-foot boat, a big boat that usually has 2 or 3 decks, and they'll tow this fishing boat with them. And when they get within range of the ship they want to attack, the guys board the fishing boat and take their AK-47s, and sometimes they go with rocket-propelled grenades, RPGs, and they got a pretty good-sized motor on this, and they go fast, and they catch up to the craft they want to attack. Well, the big boat that towed their fishing boat out here takes off because they don't want to lose that boat. They don't want to get it confiscated. So it disappears. And they do it in a way that the boat they're targeting is not going to have videos of them. So they don't want to lose that boat. They don't care that much about the fishing boat. It's not that valuable. It's basically an oversized rowboat with a motor. Normally, there's no cabin. They just sit on a board, and it's normally got sides maybe 1 meter at most, but I don't even see 1 meter usually. And it could hold 5 or 6 or 8 of them, and they go that way. It's effective for them, but over the years, a lot of companies were selling countermeasures for this piracy, Um, why they want all the people on the ships to be unarmed is such an overreach of what the governments want. They're so scared. See, they're sitting on a pile of secrets. They're all Satan bots. They're perverts. They break their own laws. They do horrible things all the time. Think Epstein Island. And they're so scared they're going to get caught and overthrown. They always want their people to have no arms. And the countries that let the people have weapons, they're constantly trying to get them to stop it and change the laws or something, you know. They hate it. So they don't let them have guns. They should, because that would solve the problem, you know. Now, if you're in America and you don't go offshore very far, and you have like I know if you're in Florida, you got like a little 25-foot boat or cabin boat or open boat, and you go putting around, you go maybe a half a mile or so offshore. You can carry guns with you. Yeah, you can carry a 50 caliber, not, but semi full auto would be very difficult to arrange that, but you could have a semi-auto. That would be highly effective against piracy, but you don't see any pirates around there, you know. So you could just carry your pistol with you in case you ran into something, but you probably not, you know. Um, if you had a concealed carry permit and you would concealed carry on your boat, so what? You know. So you're able to do this stuff. But once you go out over the international limit and then you come back in, if they knew you did this, then they would say, well, you're importing a gun illegally and probably confiscated. So you have to make sure you're not going out into international waters. But, I don't know if they'd ever really do much about it with you. You'd always be finding jackass Coast Guard people that are, after 9/11, all of a sudden became, merchant of the sea tough guys, and decided that it was a great idea to take advantage and pick on fellow Americans, you know, so you'd have problems with them. Where there used to be a bunch of nice guys that you could call on for help, and they weren't doing drug interdictions, and they weren't a law enforcement agency, they were a rescue agency. And to some extent, a enforcement agency for rules and regulations, which is different. Like, hey, you got life preservers, let me see them. That's nasty harassment, but on a very low level. With a penalty, is certainly not going to be prison, and it's not going to be confiscation of your boat or anything like that. But now they're monsters. They became monsters. I know after 9/11, I was at an airport in Florida, and I was waiting at the ticket counter. I was going to, I can't remember what I was going to do. I was going to ask about a flight or buy a ticket, but they don't sell tickets at the ticket counters anymore. So I don't remember. And there was a guy there. There was two guys. They were, I think, Air Force or Navy. One was a colonel, so that wouldn't have been Navy. And the other guy was, I don't know, lieutenant or captain or something. And he got in front of me and started talking to the woman that worked at the airlines about something, getting his colonel on a flight. Just got right in front of me. This is right after 9/11. And, number one, he has no authority. It's ridiculous. His passe comitatus, right? But he was just nasty. And the colonel was sitting there making faces with me like, oh, what am I going to do? The guy's, a jerk, but he was enjoying it anyway. The colonel had his head screwed on straight. He was an older man and he understood how the military used to be. And this young kid was just trying to make brownie points with the colonel. And, it was very stupid. But I remember that event. That's when I said to myself, it's time to get out of here because I saw what was happening to America. That's right. That was in uh, 2001, you know. It was, I remember going to restaurants were empty, stores were empty. I thought it was real for a while. I wouldn't want to go to the movies. I thought that was a high risk. I had a neighbor. He was an older guy, and he spoke with me and said, "So what are you going to do? Stay home all the time?" I said, "No, I guess I got to go someplace." I remember going to Disney World right after 9/11, within 2, 3 months after. The place was rather deserted. Many of the hotels were closed, or if the hotel was open, they just had a piece of the hotel that was open. Some of the hotels had multiple buildings. They had like 3, 4 buildings, only one was open. And a lot of hotels were just closed. And they put me in that hotel. It was like a so-so hotel. I didn't like it. They had better hotels there, but it was adequate and comfortable enough. And the park was rather well deserted. It looked to me like it was about 1/4 or 1/3 of the people, maybe a fourth. So you basically were just going on the rides without lines, or maybe you had a 5 or 10 minute line. And the park closed early. I think it closed at 6 o'clock. But you had you had a good time there because it was empty. But I was thinking, oh, they might hit the park. They scared me for a while till it started coming out what really went on, and it was not fun. You know, the airports were terrible. They had private security people, and they made you empty your pockets out on the plane, and they kept telling me stand back, and I used to carry a lot of cash then. It was in the world, like if I was traveling, I'd have like 3,000 in cash and credit cards, and I didn't want to get too far away from that because these people were not, people that passed the background investigation to be a federal agent. These were people that are just working for some security guard company, so I didn't like that. And then I learned to be careful. Like I traveled a bunch then. I'd watch, if you were the first ones in the gate to get on the plane, boom, they called you over to search your bags and they wanted you to empty your pockets, right? I learned that the hard way. So then what I would do is I would stand around the boarding gate when they called for boarding, and I'd wait till they grabbed some other poor suckers who didn't know any better and was starting to go through their stuff. And then I'd walk right in and get right on the plane. So the first time I got nailed with it, and then I realized what they were doing, and I was okay. And there weren't that many people flying on planes either. They were afraid of planes. Um, People just didn't want to go anywhere. So I was telling people the other day, before 9/11, living in America wasn't that bad. People were, not afraid of a world war. They were not afraid of getting invaded. They were not afraid of massive sleeper agents in the country. there wasn't this kind of stuff just wasn't going on. People were seeing the government infringe on their rights and they were fighting back. The gun people were making great strides in progress. Must issue states for gun permits was soaring, and then states were recognizing each other's gun permits. So it was back then you were maybe able to go to, with a gun permit, maybe you were able to go to 15 states or 18 states and carry your gun. You couldn't go to New York or California or Jersey or DC and other places. They didn't want them there. But a lot of states you could take your gun. So you were able to get on a plane and you could check your gun, separating the gun from the ammo in two different containers. And I never did it, but I know people that did, and it worked. The cruise ships started harassing a little bit after 9/11. They never used to have this, but they started with more security. They used to have you, like back a few years before 9/11, they would scan your luggage with a radar thing. That's all they made you do, just throw your suitcases on. And then they wanted you to walk through a metal detector. It was very low key, and they used to let you bring knives on the plane. I used to have diving knife I'd throw in the suitcase. It was, like a 6, 7 inch blade knife, and it always passed. And if I had pocket knives, I'd put them in the suitcase, and they hit nothing. If you went through the radar with a pocket knife, like a 4 inch blade or something in your pocket, they get really nasty with you. But if it was in the suitcase, they didn't care. So if you wanted to walk around on the boat with a knife back then, they didn't really they didn't like it, but they wouldn't do much. But later on, they'd throw you off the boat. They'd go nuts. They didn't want any knives in there. Guns. You were able to take guns on the plane, on the boat, but I think you were going back before 1968 for that. And it'd be one thing to take the gun on the boat, and then if you took the gun and got off the boat and walked around in foreign countries, you could wind up in jail for a long time. They'd probably want to grab you, put you in jail, and have your family send $20,000 or $10,000 to bribe them and then let you out. You'd never want to do that, but they would rarely. I mean, for them to get on the boat and search the boat was something that you would see happen once every 5 or 10 years, if even then, because once they started doing that, the cruise ships wouldn't bring the boat to their country anymore. So that they probably never did that. So a lot of guns were brought illegally, like onto Nassau or Jamaica or something like that, from America on the cruise ships. But if you wanted to bring the gun back with you in America and you put it in your suitcase and customs decided to open it up, you could have trouble with them because they would say that you were smuggling the gun in. Now, if you took the trouble to bring them a receipt for the gun, they'd probably leave you alone. If you are law enforcement, even local, they would probably if you just flashed your badge and ID card, they'd just let you go in. They wouldn't pay attention to the gun. But it wasn't the wise idea because you're messing with foreign, countries and stuff. And back then they had skeet shooting on the cruise ships, which is real guns, real shotguns with pellets. I mean, dangerous shotgun shells. birdshot, but nonetheless, if you got hit with birdshot, you could die. You'd be in the hospital. You'd be busted up. You'd be bleeding and everything. So, it was a whole different era. But when things really went bad in America was 68 with gun control. That was what went really bad, you know. And the people used to do other things. They used to have other things they could buy. Like in Florida, they'd buy. So I was in Florida before 68, and they would buy. Let me describe these things. One thing was for your car. It worked off your car battery. It was a step-up transformer. And you hooked it up, and it put an electric current in your car. Okay? So if somebody touched your car, they'd get a pretty severe electrical shock. They were controlling people stealing cars. Now that was a stupid one because somebody could just be stumbling on the street and put their hand on the car. I mean, it was a bad shock, like it could jolt you back, They had another one where people would rig it up in their house. It was a shotgun on a stand, a short barrel shotgun, a 12 gauge, normally. And it had some cables, and you put it on the door, and it was pointed at the door. And if somebody opened up the door without disconnecting it, it would fire the shotgun shell at the door. Now, if somebody broke into your house through a window, nothing would happen. And that's a dangerous thing, too, because somebody could come home and forget it's there and open it up and kill themselves. These are not great ideas, but they had them. And you used to be able to buy them, and people, you'd walk into the store, the gun store, buy the gun, and walk out with it. They didn't phone anybody or anything like that. You just walked out with the gun. People had machine guns all over the United States. They didn't have this federal or ATF. ATF was not ATF then. It was, what did they call it? It was alcohol, tobacco, and I think that was it. I think that's what they did. They chased moonshiners, and they got people smuggling cigarettes, not internationally, smuggling cigarettes across state lines, because back then, if you were going to certain states, I think North Carolina or some South Carolina, you were able to buy packs of cigarettes for 13 cents back then, where in Florida it'd be 25 cents. But it doesn't make a big difference now. You don't, because what are they, $10 a pack or something? But they used to sell them by the carton, and the cartons were a few dollars. I think like, nothing. I mean, they were 13 cents a pack of Marlboro or something. So the other states had higher taxes on them. So guys would go to North Carolina, buy, 1,000 cartons of cigarettes, and then sneak into Florida and sell it to the stores cheaper, and the stores would make more money. But it had North Carolina tax stamps on it. So if they got caught, they would generally not go to jail. They would generally just get a bad fine. If they kept doing it, then they would go to jail. So a lot of people would drive to these other states for another reason, go into the store and buy 15 or 20 cartons and bring them back. If they caught you with 15 or 20 cartons, it'd be borderline. If you bought 3 or 4 cartons and you came back and some trooper saw it, forget about it. It wouldn't do a thing. If you had 20, you might start thinking it's commercial. You own a store or something, But they generally didn't bother. They also had certain kinds of beer you couldn't buy from one state to another. What was one of Bush? I think was one of them. Bush Bavarian beer. You could have it in Florida, but some states you couldn't have it. I don't know, something like that. I don't get the whole. I don't remember the whole stupid thing they did, but they were doing stuff like that back then. Um, People had machine guns in a lot of states, and guns were mail order. I tell people this, they know, I wish I still had these things. I had old Guns and Ammo magazine. They had ads for guns towards the back of the magazine. They have full page ads, and these guys were, back then, they were still selling World War II surplus guns, okay? And Vietnam was just lighting up, So you were able to buy, I don't think they shipped pistols. I think they just shipped rifles, mail order. Yeah, that's what they just did. They was just rifles. But they were like $6, $10 for war surplus rifles. And I used to go with my parents from the Bronx to Westchester. We'd go shopping in the department stores over there, which were good size. My father used to buy records, classical records, and my mother would buy a few things here and there. They wouldn't buy much. They'd buy things, It was a trip out of the city. We'd eat out someplace, And I used to see them sell surplus rifles in the sporting goods section. They were like $6 or $8 or something in a wooden crate, and they had sawdust in there and everything, and they would just sell them. And then you could buy the ammo and everything. And it was cash and carry. I mean, you put it in with, if you were buying screwdrivers and a drill, it's sporting goods, you were buying a football and shoulder pads and a softball, you put it all together and throw 2 rifles in and, get a couple of boxes of ammo and some clips and pay the guy with cash and carry it out. Now we're talking probably in the 50s now, But you see, there were New York City didn't want you to have a pistol. If you had a rifle back then, it was pretty. I mean, you couldn't carry the rifle around, but when I went to high school, they had a rifle team in my high school, and kids used to go to class 1 or 2 days. They had a range in the basement of the school, a shooting range. Are you listening to this? And the kids used to bring their 22 rifles to school and carry them around. As you went from one classroom to another. You had geology, and then you had arithmetic, and then you had English and whatever, right? And they carry the rifle around with them all day. They had ammo too. No, I asked my parents to buy me a gun so I can do. Yeah, we're not doing that. That got shut down real quick. But that's so kids were carrying rifles around in the street with ammo. Now I don't think they were keeping the gun loaded, but I don't know. Probably some of them did. It was a 22, but still. Um, so people would go hunting. I guess they did carry the gun around with them. The emphasis was they didn't want you to have pistols. That's what they consider a concealed weapon. So to get a pistol in New York, you had to have some sort of permit or something. I don't remember what it was back then. It used to be the precinct captain was able to issue a concealed carry permit. So if you knew some of the cops, you'd go see the precinct captain. I don't know what it was, $50, $100, $200, $300. You paid him, and he would get a permit for you. You had to get fingerprinted, clear fingerprint, criminal records check, and he gave you the permit. Then you go to the gun store, you buy the gun, and then he would, you tip the cops, and they would take you to the range and help you shoot or something like that. I guess you went to the police range. So people were very upset in America back then about this. Okay, very upset. But a lot of guys had machine guns back then. A lot of people had them. Uh, do you know how hard it is for to do a home invasion in a house where a guy's got a full automatic rifle? You come in the house, you go, you're gone. You have a Browning 45 caliber machine gun with a round 50 round clip. you know, you just spray the bullets around. You're going to hit them, kill them, probably hit them 2 or 3 times. You know, once some people kind of broke into Elvis's house. They were kids on his property, and he came out of the house with one of these Browning submachine guns. He was going to go to war with them. Then I think he realized he was dealing with kids. Uh, Elvis was a big gun nut. He had machine guns, I'm sure. So that's just what was going on. They had a lot of guys, and people just hated that because they didn't trust the government. And this never went on in America till the history of America until 1968. That's when it started, and they got worse and worse and worse with it. And now they kind of got better in some regards, but it was horrible what they did, and everybody got scared. So people weren't crazy. And we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have computer games. That didn't exist. We had board games. You rolled dice and you moved a marker on a cardboard game. We read books, physical books, not Kindle. We had real books with bookcases. And we played. We went out and we played with our bicycles. We played ball. We went out and the girls would jump rope and do stuff. We actually interacted with each other in the real world. There was no virtual world. The closest thing to a virtual world with us was you went to a movie theater and watched stuff on the screen. And a lot of times when I was a kid, you went to the movie theater, you were watching a black and white movie. We had sound. I used to turn the TV on in the afternoon, like when I'd be eating dinner, like 5 o'clock sometimes, and they had silent movies were still on TV. I never liked them; they were boring compared to the real stuff, you know. And we used to watch. I used to watch Alfalfa. What did they call it? Our Gang, with Alfalfa and I can't remember the rest of them. They're all dead now, I guess. But uh, they had kids. They showed you what they were doing, and these kids were probably these movies were maybe made in the 30s. I think they were made before World War II. They'd show you streets where there'd be a big street and there'd be 1 or 2 cars parked on the street. Life used to. There was no alternate side of street parking. They didn't put parking meters in retail, in rather home places. Everything was cheap. Cars, you were able to buy cars for less than $1,000 in the 50s. I believe in the early 50s they were $900 cars, American cars. Um, you'd have a car with the manual transmission, no power brakes, no power steering, no air conditioning, an AM radio, cloth seats, and no carpets. You'd have rubber mats. They didn't put hubcaps on. You had wheel covers, just covered the center, and no power window, no power locks, no power nothing. So you had, a speedometer, and you had turn signal, and you had a stick shift with a clutch, usually on the column, 3-speed, and you had a heater. And you had vent windows, regular windows, and you had a trunk, and you had your headlights. It was a basic car. Uh, and you had to be a guy because parking the thing without power steering was a man's job. It was rough, And even going back into the later 60s, you were able to get cars for like this, low equipment for 1,600, a full-size car. Uh, and these cars would last you 10 years. You'd have the six-cylinder engine, the very, very basic car. And they were cheap as all get up, and they were good cars, you know? So life was easy. People didn't have credit cards back then. Credit cards came in the latter 60s pretty much. And even until the 70s, people didn't have them. So people wrote checks. The supermarket was taking checks all the time, What else did they do? TV was no cable TV. You had rabbit ears or a roof antenna. So they started polluting the people's brains with the television, which began in the 50s. But the television looked a lot more innocent than it was. But their values were godless. God was completely out of life, according to television. But the themes were there was no sex. There weren't people, partially dressed, and people weren't making believe they were having sex on TV. And, mama stayed home and cooked in the kitchen wearing her high heel shoes, and dad went to work and came home and, stuff like that. Look, you used to be able to buy a car. When I was a teenager, you could buy a used car for $100. Okay, you didn't have to have insurance. You just buy the car. Okay, that's all you had to do. And used cars for $100. That was what it, and you were able to drive it for a couple of years, depending on what you got, and how good you were at picking it. If you wanted to spend $300, you got a pretty good used car. So kids would have cars. Kids in high school had cars. Life wasn't this way at all. So it wasn't stressful like it is today. Today it's crazy. And I welcome going back to the old ways. Not having to deal with a digital world. But it does do some good. We're using it for good now. Okay. The Trump administration imposed sanctions on a large Chinese oil refinery, Nangli Petrochemical, and about 40 shipping companies for transporting Iranian oil. So Trump wants to keep provoking China. The Air Force air bridge to the Middle East is continuing at full stream. It never stopped. This is weeks. Constantly, every day, cargo planes fly into Europe, then the Middle East. C-17s and the other ones. Loads of stuff coming in. So I don't think, in reality, I don't think Trump ever really was seriously expecting a deal with Iran. He's calling it a deal. It's a surrender, basically, conditional surrender or something. He's not expecting that. He's rebuilding to attack them. I'll be back in a minute. Quick break. Mommy, you can always come in the office, but you don't like it. No, not yet. So when is Trump going to light up Iran? Well, if Iran keeps interdicting ships, he's going to light them up any day. And I think Iran will keep interdicting ships. So any day, I think. So a passenger on a plane at Ben Gurion took a picture, and at the airport, that's our airport, and there was quite a few United States KC-46 Pegasus and KC-135 Strato tanker refueling tankers on the ground there. Also, the Raptor jets have been spotted there. We caught Hezbollah using ambulances in addition to medical teams as cover to transport weapons and terrorists. So they dress up like they're, an ambulance for paramedics, and we used to get this in Gaza too. It's a copycat from Gaza. So the West Texas oil, which is American oil, 94 a barrel. That's the paper oil. The Brent 105. That's a normal spread, by the way. And the gold a little while ago this morning was 47.08. So they're fluctuating, I guess you say. The gold 47, 4,800. So it gives the brokers, the traders, the exchanges, movement enough to make sales. If gold was frozen at $48, nobody would ever sell it or buy it. It would just be static pretty much, and they wouldn't be getting their commissions. So they keep it moving. Manipulated markets. And silver's at 75, which is again the same thing. They're moving it a couple of bucks here and there to keep the action going in the market. Let's take a look at what our gasoline prices are. By the way, ChatGPT is coming up with a new version. I think it's something like 5.56 or something like that. And they're getting rid of, it should be out real soon, and they're getting rid of the errors and how ChatGPT is making answers up, just guesstimating and stuff like that. They're getting away from it. ChatGPT tries to build a personal relationship with you and stuff like that, where Gemini does it a little bit less. But if you get into Claude, Claude, which is a very nice one, it is very not friendly with you. It's not nasty. It just and Grok. I don't care for Grok. It's very slow to use. I don't understand why they do it. I don't mess with Grok. I canceled Grok. I told you it kicks out in another couple of days. I don't like it. It wasn't anything I really enjoyed, and I think Elon Musk got his finger in so many pies right now. He's doesn't have the time to deal with Grok or something. I don't know. Now, I've never tried the advanced version of Grok, which is $300 a month, and I don't think I would. That's way too much money for an AI program. That would be good if you had some sort of a business and you had a bunch of people using it in your company or something like that. What is this thing? Hold on. Oh, this is the latest scam. I keep getting these mails. I'll read it here. I noticed that my track appears in your video without my consent on your channel. This violates my copyright since I did not grant authorization. That's pretty bad English. If no action is taken, I will escalate this, which might result in a copyright strike. I hope to hear from you soon. Okay. Now, the first thing you do is you realize that you would be getting your copyright strike notice from Google, not from some goofy person. And then I look at this goofy person's email address, and what I read is, the name of a woman and some last name with a number at Gmail. So it's a complete farce. I mean, they say my channel. What they normally would do is tell you the name of your channel at YouTube, and they would give you the minutes and the seconds in this particular video. They would give the specific name of the video and the minutes and seconds where this copyright violation appears, but I don't use anybody's music or anything like that. So, I mean, I know it's a fraud, and they don't address it personally, or sometimes if they do, it's just the name of the YouTube channel. So, what they're trying to do is make you think that you committed some sort of a violation of copyright by using their music, and they're going to complain to YouTube unless you want to send them some money. So they're probably trying to get $50 or something. I get about 2 of these a day. These are scammers that are spamming. More than likely, they're in another country where nobody's going to do anything about it. And I don't know. I guess that if they make, $100 a day or $50 a day, they're very happy. That's what I think, because if they're living in some country, that's could be a good living, they're making $2,000 a month, they could, make a living at that, and they just belt this stuff out and hope one person or two people a day pays them, They don't do it with call me, they don't give a phone number, they just use email because they probably don't speak English. It's before we had the virtual world, when we were living in the real world only. Wait a second. We lived in the real world only. We never had things like this. You had other kinds of scams and frauds in various publications because we were reading things, paper, newspaper, put in, here's a device that'll help you do this or that, fraudulent medical healing devices and different things. So, but it's just gone, so crazy, you know, and I don't think law enforcement pays any attention to speak of any kind of internet fraud, or you wouldn't see much of it. I think they just don't ignore it. They don't enforce it. I don't think they bother. So these people get away with it. Let me take a look at our live stream. Um, I can't read it. It's so small. I don't know how they managed to shrink the text. I used to be able to read it, but now I can't read it. So let me open up my little magnifying glass and see if I could read it now. Gosh, it's like 3 or 4 point text. It's I don't know. I could even think it's 2 point. People come in here and they say donate money, and I don't know who these people are. I'm going to take the post down. Chances are 99% of fraud. The aircraft carriers are in danger. Well, they would be if they get close to Iran, but out where they are, probably not. Uh, I don't think so. They're very careful with those things, but they could lose a carrier. They could lose a destroyer. They're way more careful with the carrier than the destroyer. The destroyer is a lot smaller. It's nowhere near as high up as a carrier, and it's very agile and maneuverable, and it's even kind of stealthy. So they're harder to hit. And Iran is trying desperately to sink an American warship. They want to really do it, but I don't know if they ever will. Look, we lost In World War II, we lost tons of ships, submarines. We lost cruisers, battleships, aircraft carriers, all kinds of boats. We had go-fast boats called PT boats. That's where Iran got the idea. The PT boats were dangerous to the enemy. Oh, yeah. Because you couldn't really hit them. They were very fast and maneuverable. And they could hit the enemy. And they were dangerous to the enemy. Now, with 3 aircraft carriers out there, I'm pretty sure there's at least 3 submarines. I mean, I couldn't imagine no submarines or 1 submarine. I could imagine 2, but when you get to 3, you're in a wolf. Well, with 2, it's a wolf pack. Not really. 3 is a wolf pack, I think. And when they're in a wolf pack, then it's dangerous for the enemy because the submarines will work together with each other and blow the enemy out of the water. But I don't believe America is going to send a bunch of aircraft carriers out in hostile waters without some submarines around. Now, maybe they got 4 or 5, I don't know, but I think 2 or 3 would do the job. Not 1. They wouldn't take a chance with 1. If something happens, they have an equipment failure on their own, right, without being attacked. Whoops. Now the ships are undefended. If you got 2, 1 gets taken out, you only got 1 left. If you got 3 and something goes wrong, you're still probably going to have 2 functions. So I think they probably have 1 per aircraft carrier, and they probably got 3 of them running around out there. And they're watching out pretty carefully. So Iran has no real navy. They got go-fast boats. And the go-fast boats can damage the destroyers. And if you had enough go-fast boats damaging it, it would sink. So they could sink destroyer, you know. Got to be careful with them. So I think Trump definitely has it in the back of his mind that he's going to have to attack Iran mightily. So he's restocked and he's going to probably go for another 2-week or 3-week run at Iran with Israel. And I don't know what day they're going to start, but starting today or tomorrow makes sense. Because it's the weekend and most people don't trade on the weekend. So the markets are mostly closed. And by the time the markets open Monday morning, the people could be used to the idea. But what will we see? Normally, we'll see gold go back up, and we'll see the oil go back up in price. But what Trump's going to try to do is persuade the people into thinking that the oil's going to go down in price because we're going to have fewer and fewer, you know, sellers. But who's Iran going to attack this time? Well, they're definitely going to attack American bases. That's a priority with theirs, okay? They're going to try to hurt America, hurt American military equipment, hurt the American military. They're going to try to pick off things in Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, maybe Oman, maybe not, and a little bit in Jordan and Saudi Arabia, big time. And they're going to try to cut off whatever oil is getting manufactured and pushed out. They're going to try to get all that stuff stopped, okay? They'll hit Israel. They'll try to have Hezbollah pour it on Israel, but that's not working. Israel's not just leaving Hezbollah alone in the ceasefire. Israel has a ceasefire with Lebanon, not Hezbollah. Well, the fact that Lebanon's never really attacked us, is apparently moot. the only the only ones that are attacking us is Hezbollah, which we have no ceasefire with. So we're continuing to attack Hezbollah assets, target assassinations, buildings, everything. Yeah. They'll probably start shooting rockets and missiles at us again if they got anything left. But Netanyahu's trying to whittle them down. The Houthis may or may not join in, and Iraq may or may not join in. I think Iraq will join in. And Hezbollah will. The Houthis may let this one go. They may not get into it. So I think it's any day. That's the best advice I could come up with. It's an any day thing. By the way, they're building up this whole industry of smart glasses, and they're working it with artificial intelligence. So I think if the world lasts long enough, which I doubt, the artificial intelligence will be doing all kinds of things, like with the glasses, like what? They have little speakers in the earpieces here and microphones, and you hear it, but other people don't hear it. Sound travels through solids really good, and the earpiece in the back here is pressing on your body, your ear, and that's where you hear the sound, I believe. But you'll be able to, like, what? You're talking to somebody in German. You don't speak German. So you get on your glasses and you say, you can buy this today, by the way, right today, you can get this. And the person will go to, Sprechen Sie Deutsch, or, whatever they're going to say, in German, and you get your glasses to give you a real time. So what'll happen is the glasses will pick up what they say, and after 1 or 2 seconds come back at you, and it could do it one or two ways. They have a display where it's like a holographic, some kind of screen on the lens of the glasses, and it'll print what the guy said in German, or just give it back to you by voice. So the guy said, "How are you today?" And then you say, "Okay," and then you say, "I'm very good today, glad to meet you." And the glasses tell you how to say that, or you could have the glasses do it through your phone, and your phone speaker will say, in German, respond to this guy. So you could also download a certain amount of foreign languages, so you can do this without being on the internet. So you can put German language into your phone, which your smart glasses interface with. So you're really getting kind of a not very well balanced, real-time language transmission. What you really need to have is a speaker in the glasses, which maybe some of them do by now, I don't know. And then you talk into it and you tell it, well, tell the guy, blah, 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 blah. And then the phone speaks to the guy. That'll be amazing, because you can talk to people in Africa or Asia, Chinese, Mandarin, or whatever, Japanese, it'd be pretty cool. So if you were going to go to Japan, you could basically, well, your phone, you can do it with your phone now. You just go into the phone, you tell the guy to speak into the phone in Japanese, and then it tells you in English or prints it. And then you give it in English, and then it speaks it to the guy in Japanese. But if you have it on smart glasses, it'd be probably easier. So they're making a lot of advances in that. If time lasts, you'll be basically, your glasses will be, I think, if it ever went 2 more years, I don't ever think we'll go 2 years, never, never. But it would be able to do amazing things. You'd have your basic computer in your glasses, and you'd be able to do all kinds of things. So you're let's say you're visiting Japan and you see all the signs. You just look at one of the signs and you tell the glasses, what does this sign say? Or you can give it the command to take a snapshot of the sign if you're moving on the car. Take a picture of that sign and take a picture, and then it'll tell you what it says. You know, you can go into stores and hold up an item in Japanese and say, "What am I looking at?" And it'll tell you what the can says, and then you could ask it the price. They give you the price in yen, and then they say, "Give me the price in dollars," and it converts it, and all of this. Uh, okay, so uh, let's get a prayer out. And my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for me and my wife and all the true believers in their household. I pray we have your strength, stamina, and endurance, and your healing and recuperative power flows through us, healing what needs to be healed. And I pray for our animals and pets and us and ourselves to be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I pray that Israel doesn't take damage anymore from missiles, rockets, drones, etc., because it needs to be rebuilt, and pray we don't do it. And I'm wondering if we have a new heaven and a new earth and the rebuilding, does the new heaven and the new earth get rid of all of the old ruins? I don't know. Maybe it's the city we're rebuilding, not the rooms. So I guess it could be the case. Have to look at that more carefully. Okay. And I pray for to be able to make better videos. And I pray to get my finish setting up my apps and my new iPad. And I pray for those of us that need a job, to get a good job that they enjoy and like and get paid well. And I pray that those of us that have businesses that need clients and customers find these clients and customers. And I pray that I would be able to process easily and quickly through the uh, government system for my bad vision and get the benefits that would be coming to me. And I pray you would pray for that too. And I pray for um, all of us to remain of a sound mind and be at peace and rest, and remember all things work to good for those who love the Lord, and that those of us that are overstressed out now, I pray that we get restored or return to a nice, good, calm, peaceful state. I pray we all have adequate money and then some. I pray we would all understand the Bible better. And I pray all this to you, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with this if you're a believer, even though it's a video. And please pray that we continue to get our packages. We did get that one with the supplements in it that my wife needed badly, and they came just the day she ran out. They showed up. I was shocked, but it actually came. We have another one of those packages that's floating around the world somewhere we're waiting on. And we got other stuff coming in. Just pray we get our packages. Appreciate that. And I'll keep everybody updated. And I tell you that we could go to war any day now. The 3 aircraft carriers together is a big deal. The Iwo Jima working its way over here, I don't think is that big a deal. So I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out. And I hope you got something out of this. Thanks.